We're going to start tonight with the marijuana debate. Seems pretty settled here in New York, at least policy-wise. It is legal to have small amounts of cannabis. You'll soon be able to legally purchase it. But as we've mentioned a million times, it is still illegal at the federal level. Well, yesterday, President Biden announced that he would pardon everyone convicted of simple marijuana possession at the federal level. It's thousands of people, though the vast majority of pot convictions happen at the state and local level. There was another big part of his announcement yesterday, though, that we want to focus on tonight, and it deals with how marijuana is classified, because this could have a significant impact. Listen.
The federal government currently classifies marijuana as a Schedule I substance, the same as heroin and LSD, and more serious than fentanyl. It makes no sense. So I'm asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Attorney General to initiate a process to review how marijuana is scheduled under federal law.
Well, this is significant because take a look at this. New York is among a growing number of states that have legalized marijuana, but it is still a Schedule I drug at the federal level, and that kind of adds to this complicated system. And then also you have medical cannabis, right? This is how many states now allow that. Federal law has made it more difficult for these medical programs to operate in all of those states that are highlighted in green. Joining us live right now is Joe Schafer, a member of the cannabis law team at Lippes Mathias. Joe, it's great to have you back on here. The president mentioned there federally pot is treated like LSD, a Schedule I drug. And I want to show our viewers, if we can here, some of the other drugs that are considered to be Schedule I. I mentioned LSD there, also heroin, meth, ecstasy, peyote. What are we to make of the fact that if marijuana is taken off of that list and rescheduled, what that will mean in practical terms, especially for, these medical marijuana programs, but even recreational, because these are businesses and it's tough to operate a business when you're dealing with something that is federally illegal.
Sure. And Michael, first of all, thanks again for having me on. I know we generally run out of time, so I'll try to keep it tight tonight. The graphic's perfect because the way that marijuana is treated under federal law, like it shows, it's treated the same way as heroin and LSD, and actually a schedule above fentanyl, which obviously is in the news a lot. You obviously speaking about it more than I am. But what does it mean in terms of for the clients, especially in states where we have legal medical programs? Well, it just makes operation very hard. There's this gray cloud of almost confusion looming over these what are supposed to be state licensed entities who are operating legally under state law but illegally under federal law. So, there's always, especially at the advent of legal medical marijuana in California, you always had the threat of the DEA being able to come in and seize any products because marijuana remained a Schedule I federal substance, which means that there is a high potential for abuse and no foreseeable medical treatment. Which I think we have 39 states that currently have medical marijuana programs. There's obviously some odds between your federal on one hand and your state on the other hand.
Yeah, no doubt about it. For years, we've heard from lawmakers, including Senator Kirsten Gillibrand here in New York, who have said that this needs to be rescheduled, right? There is clear evidence that there are medical benefits to marijuana, and so why is it a Schedule I drug? Obviously, that has not happened in Congress, right? We still have it as a Schedule I. Now you have the president, it's seemingly trying to do this administratively, right? He's talking to his attorney general and to the departments within the federal government. How do you kind of see that playing out? Would it maybe not take an act of Congress to reschedule this?
There's a few ways to do it, but I think, Michael, Congress there's been a number of attempts to let's just say work with marijuana at the federal level. There's the Safe Banking Act, which has been, I believe, sitting in Congress for a number of years now, which is just supposed to help state licensed cannabis businesses to actually bank safely as opposed to having to operate in all cash. Then we have, Senator Schafer this year put his federal legalization bill in, but ultimately there's a federal legalization could happen in a number of ways. Congress could step in. the executive branch, going back to Schoolhouse Rock, could come in and reclassify this as either scheduling it like a lower schedule or descheduling completely, or there could be federal legalization efforts altogether. So there's a number of steps. This could just, frankly, what I see it as is it's the Biden administration's first step in hopefully bringing about some meaningful change with respect to cannabis at the federal level.
What is the argument against doing that, right? Especially just removing it from Schedule 1 to at least like Schedule 2, right? It's hard to find people who are against that. So you kind of wonder why it's still the way it is.
Yeah, Michael, look, admittedly, I don't want to get into the politics of it. We operate in New York State, which, New York State legalized in March of 2021. And it seems like there's a tide of states who are looking at legalization at least from the medical lens, if not in the adult use lens. So, while I think that ultimately being a Schedule 1 substance, marijuana is difficult to actually conduct research studies on. I know it affects education or higher education institutions, the ability to actually look at the drug and the benefits of it. So even hopefully a potential rescheduling could help with some of that. But the arguments against it, I can't get into that because obviously, based on what I do, it's something that we're obviously hoping that the tide continues to turn.
Yeah, no doubt. Finally, I've only got about a minute left, Joe, but the governor made some news this week in terms of the recreational program here in New York State. She told a newspaper editorial board that we should have 20 dispensaries up and running before the end of this year, 20 more to open each month after that. What do you make of that timeline?
I think that it's very realistic based on what we've seen. We're supposed to be the conditional adult use retail dispensary licenses are going to be awarded in the next, few weeks, if not months. And then, frankly, we got to get these folks in their buildings to have these dispensaries ready to go. Hopefully, we see something in between Thanksgiving and Christmas and folks are giving their loved ones potential cannabis presents around the holidays. I think the timeline's realistic, and I think it's something that the state has shown a very strong commitment to sticking to, and we don't have any reason to think that they wouldn't. Yeah,
and if there are 20, presumably you'd have at least a couple here in Western New York. So we'll be following it closely. Joe Schafer, thanks so much for coming in. Good to see you. We appreciate your insight.
Thanks so much, Michael.